Okay, well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our March 15th regular school board meeting. I think this is the largest non-COVID related audience that we've had. So that's fantastic too. Isabella, and what's your name? What's your name? Lily. So Isabel and Lily are here with us, and are you ready to call the meeting to order and have your friends and family start this? Yeah. Okay, let's do it. Laura, do you have an introduction or?
I do. So I figured, first meeting of the new season, we'd go big, and I was email the ECLC staff and say, anybody interested? And in true Mrs. Frost style, she's like, yeah. So I said, all right, go. She goes, my whole class. Okay. So I think this just really speaks to Jamie's style of really creating a community that is inclusive and really encourages all students to grow, no matter where they are in their learning and in their development. So we have Mrs. Frost and all of her kindergartners, and Miss Lindsay is here too, Lindsay Maziars, who is the paraprofessional that assists these wonderful students. So they are really excited. They're all dressed up. Am I stalling here? And so ever so cute. So are you ready to say the pledge? Ready to say the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now then the other thing, Jamie said, well, we're not just going to do the pledge, we want to sing a song. I was like, okay, all right, so wait till you hear this. I just got to get I was all queued up, but then I had a little national anthem moment earlier. Sorry? Somebody. It's nice and loud.
I'm too scared.
Don't be scared. Loud and proud. It's okay. Just like we
Say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so gladly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, his broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight of the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in there, and our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave? And the home of the brave.
And parents, all of you for coming, and Mr. Gibson. I have a little surprise for you.
I say that was the best thing ever. Have fun? Glad you guys came here. Understandable, but we are so happy that you guys came, and we're glad that you had a fun time singing this, and just think you've got so many more years here. Great teachers in ELC and elementary school and middle school. So we're really happy that this is where you're starting your educational journey. So that doesn't sound like a lot now, but we have a couple of years. You're really going to appreciate the fact that you're bearing. So thanks again for coming. I've got a little pin here for you, just as a thank you for the pledge. Thank you, and your parents can help you. We keep them in little baggies. Thank you.
I want him to come on.
Cody, here you go. Yeah, thank you.
Your siblings, that's still right.
You bet. Bye.
Thank you. Nope, you're good.
I ordered more of those.
It's always hard to come down on cute pleasures, and then we have to do all this other stuff. I know. Yeah, it's not as fun.
Bye, thank you.
Have a good night.
Bye, thanks again for coming out.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
A little voice. Oh.
Not hard.
Hey.
I really have to pick it up. Give me like a song and dance routine next
That
time.
bar right up there. Jamie's got some good videos from the past, if you all remember.
Thank you.
I'll have to find it for you, Stephanie.
All right.
Yeah, that would be good.
One of our now 4th grade friends. Let's
can't even read
not
this.
ball. During the reading group, and we remember we had one that Jamie had done a while back.
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
We have 2 amendments to the agenda, yeah?
2 amendments to the
Yeah.
agenda.
No, 1. Yeah, 2. 2. First one, we'd like to add facilities discussion after the social emotional survey. And then on non-public, I think we just need to add, this is a concept discussion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Minutes, this is the public and non-public from March 1st.
So on administrative reports, under A, superintendent and administrative team, I just wanted to fix the acronym to say MTSSB instead of MTTSB. And then the same section where it's the school district enrollment reports, the 3rd paragraph down. I just wanted to make sure it was clear that when it says currently they are only pulling only single homes, I just wanted to be clear that it's single family home permits, because it just might be confusing the way that it's written.
Single family, okay.
And I think we honestly can get rid of the second only. I think we
Right,
only need
yeah.
one only.
Okay.
All right.
I make a motion to approve the minutes, both public and non-public, from March 1st as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Svensson abstain.
And Gibson abstains as well. Okay. 302. And public comment. So Jan, and just before you start, anybody who's online, use the hand raising function, and then we'll grab you right after Dan. Yeah, I think that will catch the recording, right, Jeff?
I just got off an airplane and it's another super spreader affair, so I'll take off my mask to speak if I may. Speaking on behalf of the select board today, I'd like to congratulate Ms. Taylor and Ms. Neal on their reelection. and the whole board for your warrants all passing. That was very impressive. But I think it reflects the community's appreciation of the hard work that you did. I know how hard those are to put together, and you did an excellent job. We did reorganization last night. Well, let me go back. We had 2 new members of the Select Board, Ms. Joyce Capiello and Mr. Robert Gibson, be our 2 new members of the Select Board. Myself, Jim Sakosha, and George Bailey remain on the Select Board. All of the town warrant articles passed as well. There were a few of the planning board's warrants that didn't pass, but for the most part they did. So I think a pretty successful day. I was elected as the chairman for this year. George Bailey is the assistant secretary. We mostly kept our same committee assignments, so you'll have to put up with me for another year. Bad break, but stuff happens. I really wanted to thank ECLC. They're going to do some repair work to the sewer system, the septic system for the rec in the library, and the library will stay open for the most part, but we needed some place for them to clean up and wash their hands, and ECLC volunteered to do that. Really appreciate that, so thank you very much. And we'll continue to use that facility for our meetings too. I'd really like to get a closer relationship with the school board, so on each of our agenda there will be a school board slot. You can come in, say hi, say the school's working, or bring up any issue, and we'll discuss that issue as part of our board meeting. So, for Dave, Carrie, please come and attend. I would really appreciate it. Like I say, we'll discuss it. I think there are 2 things, maybe 3 things that we need. 2 things that we probably need to discuss as boards. One, I think at the candidate night, and I think on both sides, for the Select Board and for the school board, people mentioned a combined advisory budget committee, and I think we ought to have that discussion. I think the town deserves that. We may or may not want to do that, but I think we need to have a discussion, a public discussion, so that the community can hear that. So I'd be happy to, I think it would be wise if we set up a joint meeting, perhaps, of the whole boards, so that we could discuss that in some detail. I'll talk with you, Dave, or Dan, you can talk with Connor, and we can set that up. I think it would be a good idea to have a memorandum of understanding of what we do. I know Dan's about to leave, and I think it would be nice to have that in writing so that everyone kind of knows. And I think it would be good to have that as a public discussion, so I think the town will know. I mean, they look at us, both of our boards, they look at their tax bill, and I think they have trouble differentiating. And I think it would be useful for the community as well as ourselves if we had something, a public discussion, and then a meeting. I'm willing to do that. Let's see, the tricentennial's coming up shortly. Rick Walker has lots of plans. The first event probably is going to be the 9th of April. He talks about a talent show. I don't have the details. This is all Rick Walker, so you can go with that. There will be a special select board meeting on the 10th of May, which will be the 300th year since the charter. I understand, I didn't know this when I signed up for this job, but I think I have to read the charter in 17th or 18th century English. I will make it. I don't know if
I know somebody who's really good at that.
Yeah, yeah. We'll work on it. Hopefully we don't have to do it in costume, but we'll see. There will be a concert after that. There are a lot of events scheduled in June. You can see them around town. The Tricentennial Commission is happy to listen to any other suggestions you might have. The parade is scheduled for the 23rd of July. Rick insists this is going to be a great parade. And then on the 30th, we're going to have fireworks display, if we can get the fire chief to agree. he insists that we'll have fireworks on that day. So again, thank you and congratulations on the things you've done. And I'd really like to talk about the possibility of a joint meeting so that we can do this in public and let our citizens have a sense of how we're working, how their tax bill gets worked together for everyone's good use. Thank you.
Thank you.
You want to remind folks where you should be shamelessly promoting license plates, Christmas holiday
T-shirts.
ornaments, and
I will go
T-shirts.
further, yes.
T-shirts,
You can get them at the library. If you call Rick Walker, he'll probably deliver them to you. There are several, we've had Christmas ornaments for the last 3 years. What else are we going to have? I don't know.
T-shirts.
T-shirts.
That's right.
And the plates.
And we're trying to
And
work
there's
on.
license plates.
Yeah, those can be worn on your car, the front part of your car, the front license plate for the whole year. We have dispensation from the state to do that.
And no tickets for those people, right?
That's correct.
That's what we heard.
Correct.
Yep.
That's
All right.
correct. We'll work it down. There are other things, and there may be more stuff coming. And I think you have some over at your place, don't you?
We do indeed.
Yeah, I thought so.
We do indeed.
I'm happy for. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sure. So just even though it's public comment, maybe we want to consider reciprocating and having just a standing slot for the select board representative, so we don't use public comment.
Okay.
Because that way, I think it allows it to be more of a bi-directional
Sure.
conversation.
Okay.
So,
Going forward, we'll add that
yeah,
to.
yeah, you don't mind. We'll do the same thing.
I appreciate that.
All right.
I think that'd be useful.
Okay.
Okay. And then on the other items, yeah, just send an email, and then we can schedule that. All right, and let's just see. I don't think there's anybody with their hands up. Okay, yeah, we're good. Okay, so moving on, administrative reports.
Administrative reports. We'll start with Ms. Deely.
Yeah, it's been a while. I looked back, it was February, so lots has happened. I'll try to make it quick. So the 100th day of school was celebrated with lots of great math activities in all the classrooms. With the Owl's Nest trails out there, there's a new activity that run by Mr. Tubbs. The gingerbread man was missing and was out on the Owl's Nest trail, so all classrooms went out and got to take part in a walk, and the excitement around that was pretty fun. Read Across America Week, which is also like our Spirit Week, and we had a readathon just to really promote literacy. The preschool lottery took place, so we have placed all the 3-year-olds. We actually have one opening in that program, and the 4-year-old program is full. We have a waiting list. All paperwork's due Friday, so if anybody doesn't turn in their paperwork, we'll start calling folks on that waiting list.
How big of a waiting list?
7.
How many total are in the program?
There's
the
12
4-year-old?
slots in
Oh, okay.
each.
Right.
So, I mean, that's typical, like tuition students and then special education spots, and we leave some of those open for the referrals we'll get next year. So we had kindergarten information night in person. We had about 80 people come, which was great. Lots of faces that we're familiar with, Stephanie, and lots of new parents as well, which is great. And so the link will go live on April 1st for parents to start getting the registration done. And so teacher accomplishments, teachers, are busy working on report cards right now, special education staff working on progress notes. Preschool continues to do a lot of great work monthly. They're taking a day each month or half a day to work on power standards. In preschool, there are just a lot of standards, so really trying to kind of cull through all those and come up with some power standards. And they've actually created a report card for the 4-year-olds, which we've never had before, so that'll be a nice reporting out system for those families. Diane Messer and I are we're creating a workshop for kindergarten parents. We're going to offer it twice, once at night and once during the day. I'm calling it Ready for Kindergarten, and it's just going to be, we opened it up, invited all those families that came to K-Info Night and just really talk about sort of kindergarten expectations and ways they can get their students ready and assure a nice, smooth transition to kindergarten. That's going to be coming up in April. Excited about that.
Student accomplishments. There's so many. I want to share really quickly, and I got parent permission to do this, but there was a student here this evening who was in our preschool program for 2 years and did not speak a word. At the end of last year, we had a selective mutism specialist come on board on his team, and thanks to Deanna allowing us to hire her. She worked with him throughout the summer. Jamie spent hours and hours creating relationship, letting that student spend time in her classroom to really work on his brave voice within that classroom. Today, he sits at the table, talks with friends. He actually had to be reprimanded for too much talking recently, and we were like, yes! He did not even, he kind of would freeze outside at recess. He didn't play. Today, if you went, you'd see him running, playing with his friends. The other day, I went in the classroom and he was leading a foundations lesson. So I just think that, you know, so many times we look at test scores for student successes, but there was an amazing success in this room tonight that I think was the result of a whole lot of people at the ECLC working together, and it's pretty amazing. And his family are incredibly, incredibly grateful to the district for that. So I just wanted to share that because pretty amazing. So enrollment, we're pretty much the same. I reported last time we had 50 preschoolers and 107, and we're holding steady at that. We lost a couple, but we gained a couple, so all that averaging out. So, yeah, all I have.
Was the gingerbread man found?
I don't know, it's a little controversial. There's little messages out there about that, so I'm not, depends on who you ask.
Oh, you think it was foul play?
Yeah. No. He was found and all was well. Lots of laughs in the woods.
So Ms. Maxfield?
Sure. BES population 410 right now. Biggest concern probably is our first grade is at 114. So we have larger first grades than we've had in a long time. So we have 20 in our first grade classrooms, which is a lot for first grade. They could use some support in those rooms. Other things, absences still up this week. Holy cow! It definitely is hitting us with the. We may correlate it with the unmasking. A lot of colds. We had 68 out today. About 60 yesterday. So most of it is coming back colds and that kind of thing. So while we've had a couple positive cases, most of it is this viruses that you get.
Well, March is usually
It is.
The weather's all over the place.
Yeah, the weather is all over the place, and it is. Yeah, so it's a busy. Yesterday, I think there were 7 kids in chairs all the way down the hallway to into the nurse's room. So, but yeah, it's coming along. A lot of key events that have happened, like Laura said, a lot of the same kinds of things. Read Across America, we celebrated reading in a number of ways. Some buddy reading, we read as an entire school. We competed, each grade level competed to, who could read the most books or chapters. Music in Our Schools Month is underway. We have live performances back in our lobby. We haven't had that in a while. And we're also doing some virtual as well. So there's a balance there this year. And as usual, Amanda Ludwig is doing a great job of coordinating all those efforts. Recently, we had our PD Day. And while we had a good time for our staff to come together for a staff meeting. We also offered time for teachers to complete their suicide prevention training, and we also offered support for that through our guidance department and social worker. Keith Nice, Liz Lamar, and Diane Messer also offered reading workshops to our teachers. They were optional, and we had many people sign up for them. So basically what they did was present some of the interventions that their kids are doing out of the classroom that the teachers may not be familiar with. So lively letters, the verbalizing, visualizing and verbalizing, some of those kinds of strategies and interventions that they're using so that the teachers can at least follow through with that language in the classroom, but actually just get a better picture of how that child is learning when they're out of the classroom. So they really enjoyed that and picked up some great strategies. And just shout out because Keith, Liz, and Diane put a lot of extra time and effort into making that happen. Curriculum instruction and assessment, I think, the most challenging thing this year has been, filling in the learning gaps, in which case sometimes it means more review and it's challenging to get to all of the curricula because we're kind of starting, we have a different starting point. So we're looking at ways that, how can we get kids to be exposed to the curriculum that we want them to be. So one way we're doing that is Tarsha Doyle, who teaches our technology classes. So for fourth grade, she took on the fourth grade graphing unit. And so during her technology class, she taught them, she taught that unit, but she taught it using technology. So they learned how to use Google Sheets. They learned how to collect the data, put the data into sheets, and then turn it into graphs, line plots, all of those things. So she's covering many of those standards through that. And now she started doing it with third grade as well, because it was pretty successful. So nice carryover there. And she's, with fourth grade, she sort of took the whole unit on. With third grade, they're actually teaching it in the classroom, and she's following through by teaching them the technology way of doing that and creating that, which is how these kids are going to be doing it anyway, right? They won't be coloring in graphs. Today we had our embedded PLC. That's that 2-hour structured time where we look at all the data for all of our interventions. The team looks at all the students who are making, more than adequate progress, and they can leave the intervention, and those that are not, and looking at how we might tweak that intervention. Also looking at other factors such as attendance, social emotional needs, basic needs, history, all of those kinds of things. We will say that regular attendance has been a factor for about half of the kids who are struggling. So the kids that are struggling to make that growth even with the intervention, about half of them are impacted by attendance. Some of that have been, I would say those kids today between 20 and 40 days that those kids have missed. So it's significant. So we're hoping that we're going to get past that and that won't be as big a factor anymore. We also have our Title I Parent Night coming up in person. So that's exciting. We do that once in the fall and once in the spring. And Invention Convention will be in person in
Awesome.
April. And we will have that back online. Pretty excited.
Is there a statewide one? I mean,
We couldn't do it statewide this year. We'll be back to that next year. They have a very specific, they were virtual.
okay.
So we didn't want to do virtual and we wanted to do our way.
Right.
So in order for us to do it with them, we had to do it in February and we really didn't want to. So we decided to do it in April, thinking maybe we could do it the way we like to do it right then. So that's what we're doing. Yeah. Always an exciting one. We're always looking for judges too, so.
Oh, yeah, that's,
Love to.
I know, it's fun.
oh, yeah.
It's fun.
What's our policy on class size? I know that the state has regulations, but I think ours is less than what the state is.
Ours is less.
What's that, ours is 22, right?
22, 23.
I thought it was 17 for some reason. It's 22.
Now that's on the grade
rings in my
level.
head too, but I think that's just our goal,
I thought
right?
We
have a lower
try to
number for
keep those,
kindergarten,
the
didn't
first and second, we try to keep, which is why we have six classes. Yeah.
we?
Maybe I'm thinking
That's in
kindergarten
the
17.
teens, right? That's like 18, right?
That's maybe what I'm thinking.
So the policy is for kindergarten, 18 students, grades 1 through 4, 22, and then grades 5 through 8, 26.
And we typically do 17 to, I would say 16 to 18 for first grades. That's why we have 6 classrooms there, because,
But the state is significantly higher than.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So right now you have, I'm sorry, you have 100 and what in? 14 in first. And how many kindergartners do we have now?
107.
107, and then I guess the real number to watch is what next year looks like. That will sort of be the idea.
That's when that.
That's when you kind of figure out whether or not you have a blip or a trend, right?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, if we're structurally going to be that way, for the foreseeable future, then we probably should address it, right?
I would say within the next year, we
We've been
should do that
fortunate. We've had
long-term
it a couple
planning for
times,
the
but
next
it
3
always
years.
corrects itself. I mean, we've been lucky. This doesn't look like it may be that way. So,
Well, we can't split kids, right? So you're now at 18. We'll just round up because we're not going to split bodies. So you're already at 18. I remember
I
our
have been
previous-
since the start of the school year.
Yeah.
I was actually at 18 and 19. We've actually 7, 8, 9.
And this
We've
is
lost
year
4.
5 with a 6th kindergarten added.
Right.
so we got 6.
That's what I'm
So
getting at.
that's that whole hallway then at this point, right? The whole wing?
Yeah.
is
One
kindergarten.
room, yeah.
That's
one
6
room,
there,
yeah.
right?
Mhm. Yep. And then there's a special education classroom in there, in that hallway. Yeah,
Doesn't have a bathroom.
right, right.
Can't use that one then, right?
No. No. The
first grade is
discovery room is the room.
Very,
that
very
would-
needy this year, and it's been, I would say, and I would advocate for more help in our first grade classrooms for sure. They,
So what do we do? I mean, when we start reaching the, I mean, you have a knee-jerk reaction, which is just, create more classrooms. But do we ever think about maybe adding more para resources to those classrooms? If for no other reason, just for
Yes,
body
we do.
management?
we think about it all the time.
Do we do it?
We don't,
I think
it's not been in the cards, it's not been in the budget, but I will say that I would strongly advocate that for our first grade, particularly in this climate, the needs in second and first grade. And second grade, honestly, they've not had, their whole.
They've not had a full
kindergarten.
year.
No.
Yeah, of real,
No.
of
So,
normal school.
But first grade particularly, really needy.
Mr. Leatherman.
All righty. We continue to meet with PLCs. Reading PLC, right now, they're taking a look at their standards and reassessing the standards that they're teaching. Going to take a look at the report card, making sure that the rubrics and the standards are lining up. Math and reading are going to be restarting their assigned groups. It's the 6 weeks progress monitoring, so they're going to start regrouping according to assessments. We got a lot of things going on at BMS the next couple of weeks. Our winter band and chorus concert this week. Wednesday is band, Thursday is chorus. The musical Into the Woods is next week. Showtimes are Friday, March 25th at 6, Saturday, March 26th. Showtimes are 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. Grade 5 just had a research fair after school this week. They did a presentation on U.S. presidents. Quite a few people showed up. They did some amazing jobs. There was one kid at a White House. I don't know how he did it, but it was pretty phenomenal. Teams are starting to plan field trips. 5th grade's going to Mount Major. 8th grade's going to Boda Board in the next couple of weeks. Intramurals are happening every day after school. This includes wall climbing, volleyball, disc golf, and badminton. Quite a few students are participating in these activities. Spring sports are getting ready to start. Miss Talon, our guest note taker today, and I are working on staff evaluations, meeting with staff, discussing evaluations of the teacher SLOs and their goals. The scheduling committee is meeting tomorrow to refine the schedule that was picked. Once the details have been worked out, we're going to share with the staff and see if we're going to move forward or reassess again. Staff are going to be participating in a fitness challenge. I will not. I've just accepted I am what I am, so Ms. Newick and Mr. Benincasa are organizing that. And we have a pretty cool SEL surprise assembly planned for March 25th. And that's all I'm going to say, details to follow.
Wow.
Let me tell you something. If you thought that was cool, you wait till you see what we got planned.
Game on.
So who's going to Boda Board?
8th grade.
8th grade's going.
Yeah, team building, doing a nice job. Yeah, they went there a couple years ago.
One down in Malden, right?
Yep,
Imagine,
kids
or
went to
something?
DC and it was such a big time, so, yeah, so they're gonna go down there and do that. Wood's setting that all up.
That's
So
fantastic.
are you on track, speaking of that, for DC next year? Like, what's,
I don't know. I think we've talked about, we did not want to get in the situation, if this continued, to try to figure out how to get money back to parents in that whole 9 yards. It was, and So if we were going to do anything, we might do a shorter trip. Maybe we'll go to New York City, something like that. It's much easier to pull off, a little quicker to do. We might only take the 8th grade next year so that they do get to do a trip. And so the previous year, we would go back to that 7th and 8th grade if we can maintain the culture we're living in right now. But it was just, I'm chasing money, parents are mad. It's just, I didn't want to.
get that.
Yeah, I just didn't want to deal with that again. And I really had no control over it, and I felt bad, it's because it's an outside contractor. And it was just, I would say 3 months ago, I finally got it all wrapped up, chasing money. And it's just, So we've talked New York City next year if things maintain. We've talked about doing that, maybe Philly, a trip like that, a little short, quicker, not as far, just with the 8th grade. Yeah, so
Hard to
no
see the
DC,
Washington Monument
something
from New
something
York.
different next year though. So that's been on the table, but again, it's just been the last 3 weeks where we feel comfortable that we could go, so we just got to wait to see what's going to happen.
All right.
I have an addendum. Got a text. The Invention Convention, because we're not doing the other, we can pick our own theme. And it coincides with the Barrington Tricentennial. It's inventions that help our community of Barrington.
I love it.
Oh, I love that.
That is awesome.
So, yes, so Laura V she is on it, and that's exciting.
Right back at you, Terry.
See, what day is it? March 25th.
Going to DC.
Everybody on the bus, let's go.
Because it's the Thursday before April vacation, but I have
Road
no
trip
luck.
weekend, let's go.
Well, Mrs. V, thank you. That's exciting.
That's really good. That's
Elizabeth, this better be good on the 25th.
Looks like the 21st, April 21st.
that's great. We should definitely make sure that we, at least the Tricentennial Committee, it would be,
Be judges.
yeah, that would be pretty cool.
There we go.
Yeah.
He's been
Maybe
a
someone
judge
will
before,
invent
too,
a
so he's
automatic
familiar.
broccoli kielbasa omelet maker in honor of Phil's. Or the special. No, so this last question and comment on this. So I know the elementary school has the spring concert.
This is winter, we'll have a spring one. Our goal is to have the spring one outside again.
Well, no, yeah, so that was my point. Just same thing with the 8th grade celebration. I mean, COVID aside,
Outside,
that,
yep.
I think everybody thought that was really, really cool. You didn't have to worry about, when it's nice out, I think it makes a lot of sense.
Rain would be inside.
People were really jazzed about
Forecast,
that.
we're going to do it outside.
And that was really the only anxiety associated with it was the weather, and because we couldn't be inside, but knowing that we can go inside if we need
100
to, you don't have to change the date, you can just plan for it to be outside, so, yeah, we're
that's-
excited about that, too.
Excellent. Great. All right.
All right, so next we have Dr. Hall and the high school report for the board and the community.
All right. So you have in your packet our high school report. I have data from all 3 of the schools that we send our students to. I started off with the SAT data. So this is from last spring. So that would be, it's juniors that take the SAT. So that would be this year's seniors. The state averages, 63% of students met the SAT benchmark for reading and writing, and 43% met the benchmark for mathematics. So when we look at our students at Co-Brown, our students both exceeded the state averages and Co-Brown's averages. So they did exceptionally well there. When you look at Dover, in reading, our students were right on the, just hovering below the state average for reading and writing. You do see quite a discrepancy in math with the 27.59. That is something that we need to look into. We know math is something that we're working on already, so that's a point for us to continue to work on. And you do see that their scores for reading were a little bit above the Dover average, but below on the math.
ERW is the
English
benchmark.
reading, writing.
Okay, got it. I got it. All right.
And then at Oyster River, our students exceeded the state average on reading and writing. And we're just right around the state average on mathematics. But again, a little below what the Oyster River as a whole scored. And on the next page, you just see the graphical representation of that data. The first set of red and blue is the state. The blue is the reading and writing. The red is the math. Barrington is in the middle. And then the third set of bars is, on the top graph is Co-Brown. And then the next graph is Dover. And the bottom graph is Oyster River. So that's the visual representation of those numbers.
Something that the public's supposed to be able to see right now while we're discussing this?
Do not have a,
Okay.
no.
Okay. If this gets posted, can you make sure that it's actually color? Because you're referring to colors and we don't have colors.
I thought you had a colored copy. So if you hold it up, I'm sure you can figure out what the colors
Well, yeah,
represent,
the-
but yeah.
I'm just saying if it's
Yep,
going to
yep,
get
yep.
posted.
Yep, so blue's on the left, red's on the right. I apologize. We also have the average GPAs for our students from last year's graduating seniors. Not far off from the school averages. Co-Brown, our students are at 91.2 as an average, and Co-Brown was 89.3. We go to a 4-point scale for Dover and Oyster River. Our students were at 2.96 in Dover, and the Dover average is 3.22, a little bit higher than our kids. And then Oyster River, our students are at a 3.07, and the Oyster River as a whole is 3.28. We do also have the postgraduate plans for our students who graduated last year, whether they're going to a 4-year college, a 2-year tech or tech kind of school, military. Some of the schools gave us employment numbers, those who are going directly into the workforce. You'll see that number is highest with Dover, with 44% of students going directly into the job force. And we end with our freshmen taking geometry. And behind all of this is the full report from Co-Brown and the full report from Dover. Oyster River one is not in there because it was not conducive to reading easily.
Can I ask you, Dr. Hall, like when I'm just looking at Co-Browns, and so like the percentages don't add up to 100%, even though there's an other category.
On Co-Browns, that has to do with rounding, I believe. They're all rounded.
Because like it's 7% of the kids, so that's why I would have thought with another category,
It would,
get
Yeah.
close to 100%.
Right.
So I was just wondering where those kids went.
I did check all the numbers. I might have.
Okay.
Let me see if I missed a category. I did check to make sure. I tried to make sure they all added to 100. I left out. Nope. There's 0 kids in there. What? It might have been my math
Okay.
because they gave us straight up numbers and I put it into percentages. So it could be my mistake.
Because it's over 100% for the CBA category, so.
It could be my mistake because some of their categories were different than ours.
Okay.
So that's probably on me.
The data,
Yeah, it's in
the
this.
graphs are skewed.
This is one from Co-Brown. Co-Brown.
So
Oh, it
just
doesn't have a
you're
page.
looking on the Co-Brown report.
Yeah. When I was looking at the Co-Brown actual data for the class of 2021 statistics, because 12% other, that's quite a bit for a category. So I was just looking to see what they considered other. So that's where I was seeing the raw data.
Which one are you looking at specifically? I'm sorry.
The post-secondary plans for.
Oh.
Actually, I'll have to tell you, those are their numbers there for the
Yeah,
percentages.
this is their report.
That's their report. Yeah, I was just looking
Those
for
are
the
their numbers.
title
So
heads.
it's not my math mistake.
I was just looking
One
for
of the
title
other
heads of,
towns,
like,
it's
what
my
does other mean?
mistake.
Like, what could other possibly mean? And then I'm seeing
What
gap
defines
year.
benchmark?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That
Like,
would
I didn't
make
think about
sense.
that. Apprenticeship.
What is it? So there's on the raw scores, there's a range, and so students can score a 1, 2, 3, or 4. Students who score a 3 or a 4, that's considered meeting benchmark.
Okay.
So did we request, so we, that's great. So we got a report from Dover. And Co-Brown did what they always do, I guess. This looks like the same point. Did we get a report from Oyster River?
We have it, their format of their data was identifiable by student, so that's why it's not in there.
Yeah, so can we just have them resend the report?
I can.
Yeah, just, they can scrub the data, they can scrub that out. I'm surprised that they would, if all groups would be sensitive to that, but, yeah. Okay.
Oh, at the very last Co-Brown page, there's a whole page dedicated to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't see that at first, yeah.
Yeah, so that's where I was looking, but I was like, I don't
Yeah, yeah.
understand how those.
I guess I would ask you, so this is great data, so thank you. I guess my only question is, you know, we could certainly go around the horn, but how would you interpret this data? I mean, how would you use this data going forward with, you know, our relationship with each of these schools? What is it telling you?
Overall, I would say our students are doing well. I'd say I'd like to know a little more in Dover. I do know that Dover, with their math, that they have revamped their math program. They had been using Math in Focus like us, and they switched this year. So this is last year's data. So we're not going to see a huge change in math data right away. But I know that they weren't pleased with where their math program, what results they were getting and that. And so they made some wholesale changes in that. So I'd be interested to see what happens with the math scores in Dover. I'd also like to just have them check that number to see if maybe there was a clerical error there. That's just a really big discrepancy on that number, especially when you look at the rest of the data.
What do you mean the rest of the data?
When you compare our other scores on the SAT, that 27.59 really stands out.
Oh, are you talking about compared to other schools?
In comparison to the rest of our data, even.
Right.
Yeah. It really stands out as not on trend with the rest of our data. The
One
rest
of
of our,
one of the things Dr. Hall and I talked about was the discrepancy with the mathematics at Dover High School, but also the discrepancy in mathematics at Oyster River as well. So this, you know, is something that we need to look at more. I think we are doing very well or exceptionally well on the reading and reading SAT scores, but this is not new news to the board. But the mathematics is an area that we need to follow up with both Oyster River and Dover to know more about what that discrepancy is and where are the curriculum gaps, and particularly in mathematics. So I think one of our action to do items is to follow up with both of those school districts and find out where the particular areas of weakness were with mathematics and on the SAT.
And I would suggest too, you know, sort of like what we do in Barrington for K through 8. I mean, trending data, right, I think is pretty important. So, you know, is it an off year? Well, we don't know because we don't have the 2020 data, you know. So
right. Have the 2020 data.
So, Bill, I went back and actually looked at their iReady scores.
they didn't do SATs in 2020?
I don't believe SATs were done in 2020. Correct.
They do it online, I thought, no?
Say again?
I've got their iReady scores.
Because that's when everything shut
Oh, yeah.
down.
So the
2020
state
SATs.
assessment and the SAT, I believe that was the year where,
Regardless, I mean,
yeah.
just- we've taken SATs more than once. So,
Right.
I mean, getting that data and just seeing how it trends, I think would probably be good going forward. Because your point, is this an exception or is it, is it a trend? And
Terry's got an interesting.
Yeah, again, I think that everything needs to be done with cohort, even K to 8, and then continue with the high school. Is this group, because I went and pulled their iReady scores, and in 8th grade, 53% were on or above grade level, and 46 were below. So, I mean, when you look at that, it's, pretty,
I mean, if we really wanted to get deep into data, I mean, that's, the real analysis would be bifurcating the data at the end of 8th grade, and then basically taking this kind of data and pushing it up against the exact population, because for many reasons that we don't need to go into, we don't equally distribute students to these schools. And so they pick schools for very different reasons. And, I'm not saying that we shouldn't be better in math and I'm not saying that at all, but they're very different kids that go to these schools. So you almost want to correlate that cohort to the school, right?
and I think you can
But
do
the
that through
opposite
Unify
of that might be easier, to put the data together.
Oh, 100%.
So
Yeah, I think you can do that through that Unify program we have with Power School, because the kids are already in there. You just got to have an identifier for the high school.
Oh, and then you populate it into
Start
ours?
sorting it that way,
Yeah.
and populate that, and you can pull that out, and you could get a reading, again, no, somebody's got to be collecting that high school data, and, because we can't import it, we would physically have to enter it. Again, no, it's just a spreadsheet and it's gone.
Right.
Take a couple hours to do.
Well, didn't I read somewhere that the SATs were announced this year is no longer mandatory for college?
probably for some.
Oh, is it certain colleges?
Yeah,
but
a
not-
lot of schools.
More and
Yeah,
more
Schools
more
are
and more.
doing
Make
test
them
optional.
optional.
Right.
That's a rumor being made very, very popular by certain kids.
That's where I heard it, on TikTok. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. So I was just wondering if there are other points of data that we should be looking at in conjunction to this, as perhaps maybe those numbers go down, especially in the districts where we don't see higher than half going off to the 4 or 2-year colleges, maybe.
This is
Not
an
just
initiative
SATs.
to follow up on that. This is an initiative I've given some thought to. I was also wondering, do we do anything? I mean, our kids don't go to Durham Middle School. They don't go to Dover Middle School. They don't go to middle school Stratford. Our curriculum isn't built to satisfy all 3 high schools, right? So is there a pack or is there a primer we could give kids? Okay, you're going to Co-Brown next year. You're going to be doing great because our curriculum here at the middle school has left you ready to start freshman year because you know this stuff really well. Here's a gap though, and here's what you should be doing over the summer to get yourself ready for freshman year at Co-Brown. Also for Oyster River, you're going to be ahead of probably where those 8th graders, the Durham 8th graders are, because our curriculum teaches this part really well. But there's a gap here you should be looking at. And Dover, the same thing. You're going to be great in these 2 things, but you know what? This is something you should work on, and maybe give them some resources to coach themselves up over the summertime, or you're smirking at me.
No, I'm thinking.
Oh.
No,
I was like, he's a wide-eyed dreamer, isn't he?
No, I was thinking about how, just how best to do that. That's a big.
It is big, but I just think,
You're smirking at me.
anecdotally, it's like,
That's not her snark.
I know kids that have gotten into their freshman year of high school, and they're like, holy crud, we didn't ever learn this way at 8th grade. I mean, they might be great students, they might have done well in math in 8th grade here, but yet it's different when they get there. And wouldn't it be good to set them up in some way, shape, or form so that we're catering?
I think it goes back to, Garth, to your point, that we need to follow up with each of the schools and find out is there a particular math domain?
Yeah.
Which really is getting to your point. Is there a particular area within the math curriculum that needs to be focused on more, whether it's during the summer? And I think that's really our next step, is to meet with Oyster River and Dover School District and find out particularly where, if there is a particular area in mathematics, what is it? Or if it's more than one area.
I think it's important to be mindful, too, that the SAT was not a test that was designed for the general population to take. It was designed for a very subset of the population to take that were pursuing post-secondary
College
goals.
preparatory.
And now we are administering it to a wide swath of children. So it's being used for purposes that it was not designed to be used.
Right.
It made it easier for the state to not have to come up with a test anymore, but
It is lengthy and anxiety producing for a lot of
I
students.
still remember
Saturday
taking
morning
SATs.
anyway.
And that's why I think the
There are some
trending
high
data
schools that
is
have
almost
Freshman academy.
more relevant
Yeah.
than,
Which is an
just
option
a
for some
snapshot
kids in the
against
summer.
the benchmark.
That's what I'm-
You know,
Because
Well, Brown makes every kid do a
Dover is
math
the
packet.
example, right?
Good, yeah.
Yeah,
But I mean, I just-
Co-Brown has
kids.
summer expectations. and other
So
schools
is that a
don't.
good number or a bad number? Well, clearly we want the number to go up,
It'd be neat
but
to,
we
like,
don't necessarily know that it's an outlier, right, for the
We
students.
need kindergarten academy to get.
That would be
those
great
kids
if we
ready.
could track, if we
Problem with
could
it is
use our
that
internal,
you don't
populate that
necessarily get
into our student
They need to be
profiles.
there to go, because oftentimes those
I think that'd be
kids
kind of cool.
are not invested in their
Have it
learning.
available.
A little challenging to do the trending data with
Don't we?
the SAT because we test them in 8th grade with iReady, so we've
Well, I think
had multiple years, but
Well, I
then you
think we should
jump
be
from
offering
8th grade to
for sure.
junior year
We do a
testing.
boot camp.
I was just writing it down. I was just writing it
Yeah,
down
it
to ask
doesn't have to be
that.
trended year to year, but what you're doing is you're saying
I'm
that,
just saying, like cohort-wise,
yeah, cohort,
you're jumping. You're not gonna have their in
it's the same cohort because they're.
Yes, but you're not gonna have those in-between years on
Yeah, but
them,
that's
all.
okay. I mean, what you're doing is you're saying, okay, when they left at 8th grade, I mean, of course, people change quickly, right? But if you say, listen, the average proficiency level for an 8th grader going to Co-Brown was this, 40% were proficient, 50% were proficient at Oyster River, 45% were proficient at, Co-Brown, right? Then see where they are, in junior year. If you still have that mix, you don't necessarily need to be alarmed because that tells you more about the student body, the type of students that are going to the schools.
And then also just in general, I mean, we should revisit what Marvin and I were just talking about, is why don't we offer summer school to our 8th graders? I mean, I guess they're no longer our responsibility is the thought process, but I think they still are, and I think that what you could do is identify those things that they might need. So we're just saying that Co-Brown actually gives the kids a packet to work on over the summertime to get themselves ready for freshman year at Co-Brown.
Okay.
We could devise our own packet for Oyster River and for Dover and administer that over the summertime to kids that want to take it.
Yeah.
I just think, rather than have families get caught, holy smokes, this is a lot more than I
Right.
expected. Like, no, we prepared you for this. This is going to be different, and this is how you're going to transition into freshman year to whatever high school you decide to
And
go
there
to.
was supposed to be sort of a meeting of the minds, and I don't know, we still do it for the 8th grade. The schools got together with Barrington.
Yes.
That might be a good opportunity too, to talk to them
Yeah.
and say, can you have something that you can give our kids? I mean, or that we'll give them so that they're prepared to go to your school. I think that would be helpful too.
Or even that they'd be willing to extend to Barrington students as well, too, if we have any staffing issues or something like that. Is there something that they can offer our students? Right. Or that they're offering their current students that our kids could jump in on and utilize.
They may already give their middle
Right,
school
that's
or
what-
something, right?
that's what I was
So let's
thinking.
Ask those questions. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I think kids have enough of a culture shock. I love the fact that our kids have school choice. I just absolutely love it. I think it's great for our community. But, there's a whole culture shock that goes on with becoming a freshman at any one of these high schools because you didn't grow up with all those kids. You didn't grow up with all those teachers. You didn't grow up in the culture in that town. So that's the transition in itself. And then to be hit on top of that with,
Curriculum.
this is a different type of math than I've ever been taught. That's a whole nother thing to brace the kids for. That's great.
Okay.
Flexible.
I think parents too need, it's almost like these workshops Diane and I are going to provide to transition kids into kindergarten. I think the 8th grade for parents, 9th grade is, I was shocked at sort of how I went back to like sitting next to my students, my kids, to help them sort of, there's so many sort of those soft skills we call them, that they have to jump into. I think freshman year is challenging for families in general, and any way we can support them in that too would be interesting to think about.
Like this.
Any other questions or?
Nope, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
you.
Awesome. Thank you.
So I will keep my remarks pretty concise. So Jeff will queue up just an update of where we're at with some of our school procedures. And as the principals mentioned, we're starting to remove or lift some of those procedures as it relates to the pandemic. But before we get to that, I just want to highlight a few other things as far as a communication committee update. Obviously, the town report came out a couple weeks ago, and I want to thank the communication committee and specifically also Ms. Neal, who was very instrumental as far as the updates to the infographics that we added this year. The Communication Committee had a lot of recommendations this year. We implemented a lot of them. As we talked about as a committee, there's still a few areas that we can still improve upon.
But start earlier. We're gonna start earlier.
And if we
editing.
start earlier at editing,
Enough time to pull those graphics together?
It was a very, yes. So we're going to start planning that book a lot earlier than we did this year.
Brainstorming input on
No.
text?
No, that was fun.
but again, it was a nice, significant update from prior years. And I think going forward for the school district section of the town report, we have a good foundation now in place. I also wanted to note and thank Miss Andrea Pluna, who had updated and has created a district Facebook page for the school district. So we have the school district, school Facebook pages, but now we have a district Facebook page that we're using a little bit. We're starting to use that a little bit more, and Andrea is updating that for us as well. Emergency management.
People do we have following that, do you know?
Oh, last time that I
Huh? 3.
no,
Andrea.
yeah, I have to check, but I think last time I checked, it was close to like,
To remind me of,
and I think it was like 90 or 100. It's not a lot yet, but this was a few weeks ago when it just went, I think, live a couple weeks ago.
There's an odd time to unveil something like that. It's like right before vacation. I think we'll do a big.
I think you train people too by, I mean, like when people say, we post this stuff on the website, but just maybe posting it on that page, so that becomes sort of.
Yeah, directing them to that.
To sign up, because I think usually when they think about the Facebook pages, it's about like.
Each school.
Schools, bake sales and,
I
things
can't say we
like
next to
that.
anybody,
So
that's the problem.
I think, I think it'll gain a lot of traction.
It'll get there. Yeah, we're just starting.
Especially at the beginning and the end of this year. So like the end of this year with all the events and things like that, it'll get a lot of traction because of photos and stuff. But I think the beginning of next year will be the big push because that's when everyone's looking for that information for the first time and we can push it at a natural place in communication where you would look for it. So I think next year we'll have a lot more.
So the individual schools have their own Facebook pages?
Yes.
And then we have their districts. And is there any coordination? Like, do we?
So we are working on that. That's one of the goals from the communication committee, and obviously Andrea helps maintain the elementary school Facebook page. So we are trying to have that consistency between the schools. So if there's certain events, like I'm thinking Ms. Maxfield talked about Invention Convention Day, not only would that be on the school Facebook page, but we could also have that information populated on the district Facebook page. And for instance, the chorus concert, band concerts coming up at the middle school. So then it's on multiple venues for Facebook, which will be good.
And when Terry dresses up in his costumes around the holiday time, I expect that to be the cover photo of the district page. Yeah.
Most kids do an Instagram these days?
We do not have an Instagram or Twitter.
Or TikTok.
Or TikTok.
I know it.
So a couple other updates.
I'm gonna just want to echo, the town report is, I mean, we put the town to shame. It looks, it really is.
building bridges, Dave.
Building relationships.
I'll tell you, it's been a struggle for years, and this is really, really, really top notch.
Nice job.
It looks very nice.
Well, I think it was right around this time last year when we had the reorganization, we talked about, the school district side of the town report had not been updated for a lot of years. And so there was a lot that we could make updates to. And again, I want to recognize a lot of efforts went into that by Ms. Neal and the committee to make recommendations to make some specific updates. And there's still some work to do, but it now serves as a foundation going forward. So you can keep making those updates. So the other couple of notes.
Facility on Ramsell.
God. Keep going, Dan.
The end of the story.
The emergency management training, New Hampshire Department of Homeland Security, we're meeting with them next week as an administrative team. Because of the pandemic, there was an interruption with some of those emergency management trainings.
Is that the one where they don't tell you what the emergency is and you have to, is that the one?
They give us an idea of what the scenario is.
The envelope and then you have to.
No, it's
not that.
It's not that.
Oh, it's not like it's.
No,
I
it's
thought
not.
that's what it was like, where like you don't know what it is and then you have to all act. Yeah, okay. Oh, okay, good. Okay.
Because I'm making this.
So we're.
What did you
Sorry.
do?
Sorry.
Yeah, it's all right. New Hampshire Department of Homeland Security.
Happy to be together.
So we're meeting with them next week. And then also part of our security assessments with each of the schools. This has been 3 years since pre-pandemic where we worked with New Hampshire Department of Homeland Security and they evaluated and assessed all of the schools and gave us recommendations. So I think it was my first year in the district, we added the security cameras. And then a couple of years later, we added the window film to all the all the first floor classrooms. So they're going to be coming back end of March, early April with Jim and myself. We will tour each of the schools and get an update assessment of areas of improvement going forward. And so that's a good update as well.
So most of these are usually facilities issues. Can we take that report and bring it to the facilities committee and then have them look at it and then have it go
Sure.
to the board? Because I think I think that's kind of efficient because I think you want your facilities group. I mean, or if it's technology or whatever it is. I mean, just have it go to the appropriate committee first.
Okay. No, that's it. And then before I get to this update, we sent out this week to families and community members ESSER 3 funds, getting feedback on our ESSER 3 grant funds. We have a stakeholder team that reviews all of our grants now, comprised of community members as well as families. And also we're starting to receive feedback on the utilization of ESSER 3 funds as well. Which has been very helpful, and we're getting that feedback just starting this week, but that feedback is ongoing. And there'll be a little bit later in the agenda here, we'll talk a little bit more about ESSER grant funds, but I just wanted to call that out as well. And then Jeff has here for me a very brief update for the school board and the community as far as updates and recommendations, as far as updates we're making as it relates to the pandemic. And so the leadership team has reviewed. Jeff, if you can go to the next slide here. Yep, perfect. Updates and recommendations. Leadership team has reviewed. We're now making that transition to offering both in-person meetings and online meetings that are available for families. So we all recall that most of the family meetings happened as remote meetings, but now there's that option for both. In the last week or two, I've been working with Jim with the water fountains. They had all been turned to water bottle dispensers. We still have them as water bottle dispensers, but we've also turned back on the other parts of the water fountains as well. There's 2 or 3 that we have to, at the middle school, that we have to do an update, but most of them, there wasn't an issue. It is fixable.
Did we finally get them delivered, the ones that we had ordered? Didn't
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then whole school assemblies, and Ms. Maxfield talked about this a little bit. We're looking to have at the elementary school, having the first whole school assembly starting April 4th. And then also we're updating the Pickup Patrol daily app as well. School nurses are looking at that, and the principals are looking at that to update some of the questions. So there'll be further updates, but again, transitioning back to what school was pre-pandemic, hopefully, with looking at some of these procedures. So just wanted to provide that. The next 2 slides are just both today's data and yesterday's data. As you can see, active cases in blue, and then recovered cases at each school of COVID-19 at each of the schools. That's where we are today. And then the next slide is yesterday's data, so not really a significant change. And then, as always, the last slide has all the archived daily dashboard information, and then other updates. We still have all of that archived on our website. So it's a very succinct, brief update for the board on that.
Census data was.
And those are all the updates I have.
Any questions, comments? All right. That's ESSER.
ESSER Grant 3 funds. So in your packet of information, Dr. Hall has a little bit of information to just review with the board.
So as Dr. Melissa said, we sent out an email Monday containing the information about the ESSER. We also posted it on the website. We do have a federal grant stakeholder team. It's composed of teachers, administrators, parents, parent representation from all 3 levels. So I sent this to them the week previous to get their feedback on it. Part of this is meeting our requirements for the ESSER by the state of what we need to do and who needs to have voice in what we're doing with the grant. All of the activities that you see on here are approved by the state. We we used a previous ESSER grant for summer school staffing. We are intending to do that again this summer, and we put it in for next summer as well, so it's already in the grant for 2 summers. We also put in for extended school year program supplies. So some of these you may have seen previously in previous grants, so they're a little bit familiar to you. We also have some band instruments, cleaning and repair in there, just to provide more access to instruments when students forget their instruments, because we can't have them sharing instruments. And so this made, I can't even think of his name right now, Matson Bradbury, thrilled him that we could do this. He's already put in his first requisition, so just thrilled on that to be able to provide a little bit more for the students. Social emotional learning support, that's a big piece that's supported by ESSER, where that's a big impact from COVID and the pandemic. So you'll see that in here in a couple of places. The first one on number 4 is for our Constellations contract. That was going to cost us a little bit more this year, so we added in a little bit more into the ESSER to support that. And that provides for students with some greater behavioral needs in supporting them. We have a couple of software items that those have been purchased, Extra Math and Dreambox, to really help support our math program, to help fill in those gaps, to help support teachers in the classroom in supporting and providing individualized instruction to students. So that's what those are in there for, especially where we don't have a math intervention program and teachers are really trying to help the students in their classrooms. Social emotional learning support is on there again. That's for a behavioral support teacher. We have posted that position. We've discussed that position in here previously. And we have applications and are setting up interviews. So
We put that through the ESSER grant, ESSER 3 grant,
this is something you'll have to consider for budget.
If we want to continue.
moving forward.
Okay.
Right now it's just
District position?
I don't remember. So did we vote on adding an FTE?
Constellation's contract.
Oh, the Constellations is just a contract. Yeah, I get that. I'm talking about the full person, the new person.
So it's trading the Constellation support for the person, the actual.
Yeah, Deanna spoke to that.
Oh, this is what we were talking about during the budget.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so we did.
Yes.
So we
Yep.
did. Yeah, so we did plan for
Yes.
this. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank
Then
you.
in addition, you still want almost 49,000 for Constellations.
So that is extra for this current year.
Okay.
That 94,768 is for next year, the actual position. This year, it's contracted evaluations, functional behavior assessments, data plans, all that piece.
So it's not for 22, 23 like it says here?
So if we can't hire, I need to be able to budget appropriately through Constellations, which is almost double the cost.
Oh, okay.
We will rewrite that activity once we're able to hire.
48,000, is that for 2 years, or is that going to be, or is it really 24? Or, you know what I'm saying? It says budget 2021, 2022, 22, 23. Are you saying it's 48,000 each of those 2 years?
just 48,000.
Yes.
For both years. So it's 2 years. 2 years.
That's your complete.
So the annual cost is really 25,000.
Well, there's Constellations us in our budget too,
Yeah.
on top of this 48 that's coming out of
The
the grant.
current budget, yes.
Oh.
So we had to add an additional 200 hours because we had already come close to expending our contract to this point in the school year.
Okay, and then the 94,000 though, we did, it seems like forever ago, we did budget that, right? We did put that in our budget.
No, that is here.
That's in here.
No, they warned us, though, if we wanted to continue that service, that this upcoming budget cycle, we'd have to discuss that as a,
So number 6.
yeah.
Yes.
This is a lot, okay. So we gotta, let's figure out what we have to plan for, because this is a lot of unfunded stuff. So let's just figure out what we need to contemplate for the next go.
Position behavioral support perspective, it's just the position, but the money historically has been there. So yes, we would have to talk about the position for next year. we were concerned about being able to find, BCBA's are tough.
It's a new person, but you don't think it's a tremendously new cost going forward?
Off of what we put in the budget for next year,
Yeah.
the position will be a new, if we look a year back, right, this current year,
Yeah.
the money has been there. We just pulled that out. It's been consultation money.
Got it. So you're repositioning the money, you're reallocating the money. So we don't need to worry about finding an additional $95,000 going forward. It's in the budget, so to speak. It's just being allocated to something else.
It's not in next year's budget, no, please.
Okay.
These were all. What we will be able to reposition is if we're able to hire somebody, well, we won't need all these funds in the grant for constellations.
That's going to be something we're going to have to highlight.
So it's going to be like an either-or thing.
Correct, it's an either-or.
Okay.
So we also had some technology needs. So we put in for wireless connections in the ECLC. We needed a couple more TopCat systems. So we put in for that.
What?
Oh, sorry. The TopCat is.
Gloss right over that one.
I'm just gonna keep going.
Maybe one of Milo's.
It's an audio system.
Oh, no.
They know.
It's a hot
Not for all of them, only for the ones that were no longer serviceable. But then Deanna warned us, I remember saying that there is going to be upcoming costs to the ones that, right?
No.
No?
No, we bought up,
I thought it was just the
we
ones that
bought,
weren't
we bought, we
serviceable.
bought them, and then we said, keep some as spares in the closet that are.
Oh,
Thinking about
okay.
two different things. Do you really want me to go through the history again?
Not really.
I can do it quickly. I can do it quickly. What we did is we kept the wall-mounted ones in the ECLC because we had ones that were nowhere near end of life, right? So we held on to those.
Okay.
We turned back all the
Right, the
first,
really
second,
old
third
ones.
generation ones because they had no parts, they weren't compatible anymore. Yes, some of them were still working. But when we did now who's smirking? No. So basically it took a pandemic for Deanna to get her TopCats, right? So essentially we made the decision that this was no longer a special ed initiative, so we don't have to worry about them going into IEPs, it's a regular ed initiative. So but what we did are still going, what we did is they were in the interest of, money back then, we only put them in
Yes.
regular ed academic settings. Well, there are some other settings that do whole class instruction that need that. So we did buy 2 more.
Are we done? Is there any, are we done with?
No, I bet not. I bet
When
not.
you think you've done, you're just begun. That's what we tell our first graders.
Get that on a
Stock
t-shirt.
do you own in TopCat?
So what we didn't do is we didn't put them in unified arts.
I
But
got
now
you.
we have found
Right.
that due to some shifting, like with the way we're using technology now in that position, well, she does do a whole lot of class instruction and reaches also in conjunction. So they had one on the wall, it saw its end of life, and so we got another.
All right.
Naomi's like, I should not.
Naomi's like, it's a system that.
That's somebody else, that's
Supposed
somebody
to warn me
else's.
before I say things like that.
Surprised you put it in the report.
Well, I gotta be transparent, right?
Miscellaneous technology.
Yes, miscellaneous
Audio.
Nobody warned me.
Next year, Naomi's never going to say the word TopCat again.
All right, so the other technology needs, we needed a few more touch view interactive boards. So we put in for 3. 3 have been approved and purchased. We are going to be adding 1 more on that. So I will be revising that line right there.
Is this the one that Tubbs tested in his classroom that just projects up the wall or some sort of thing? It doesn't have a whiteboard?
No.
No, we've
These
moved
are
on
things.
from that.
This looks like a big TV.
Oh, that
It's
didn't work out
and
well?
it's amazing.
Yeah, it worked out well, but
It was
it's
really cheap.
obsolete now. And now we've had to upgrade to a different technology.
Jeff, would you like to chime in?
David.
Oh,
Those kids are in high school.
You should come see
And they're
preschoolers with the interactive boards.
I was in Miss Kim's classroom at the ECLC for their morning pre-K, and she utilized the board multiple times, and the kids utilized the board multiple times, and it was really creative the way she used it. I was impressed.
It looks like a great big TV.
And it goes up and like it has a motor that goes up and down, and
Sort of protection thing.
touch screen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. That's Mimeo, but that's worked out really well.
Oh,
But-
okay.
But you can't.
Also, don't say
Update on our-
interactive whiteboard. So that's another one. We're just gonna.
No boards, smart boards, don't say
Yeah.
that.
We should probably
Hey,
look
Dr. Hall,
ahead.
moving on.
All right, staffing for our optional COVID-19 testing program, that was to cover having staff members to help students going back and forth and all of that. Staffing for quarantine, tutoring and materials preparation for quarantine students. We had set up a tutoring program for when our students are quarantined to help them stay up with their classmates and also to support our teachers when they're preparing the materials to go home. It's taking a lot of time from them that they're putting in outside of their contractual hours. So we did add that to that line there. And then software, this is our last, am I allowed to say Cami?
Yes. Yes, we like it.
I'm just skipping over all the technology next time. We did put in for the subscription for Cami, which allows students and teachers to be able to manipulate electronic documents, which helps with remote snow days, helps with students who are quarantined, finishing their quarantine. So that's what is currently in what we've currently written for in our ESSER. If you do the math, it does not add up to our total allocation. So we have had some parents reach out to Dr. Melissa and I to comment on our uses. We've had some they're mostly very positive responses. We've had some suggestions of how to use some of our remaining funds, because we do still have
200.
rough numbers, 200,000 left.
It's a- yeah,
And
240.
we have until 2024 to use those funds. But yeah, we've had some good suggestions. We're looking into the feasibility of using those funds. There are specific restrictions for how we can use ESSER funds because it needs to be related to COVID and COVID recovery. So though some of the suggestions are fabulous ideas, we were looking at them today and thinking these are really, really good suggestions. Some of them are things that we might need to consider school budget wise and things
Well, I
like
was
that.
going to say, I mean, I don't, we don't need to go through those now, but I would certainly suggest that if we're hiring somebody that we may or may not be able to have a cost offset, keeping some dry powder around, because for the out years for the social, emotional, the behavioral support teacher, I mean, that might be good. Or at least we can phase in those costs over a period of time, right?
I was actually just writing myself a note because as opposed to reallocating the constellations chunk, we could half it, right? We could put that as half the position and put half the position incrementally into the budget and ease it in.
I mean, another one of those considerations is that summer staffing.
Right.
Having put that in for 2 summers to extend what's already in our school budget and considering, well, when this is gone,
And if we
what
were
is
to
our summer
extend that summer programming to 8th graders, we could probably use some of that funding for that as well, right?
Yeah,
Good.
absolutely.
You could. Yep.
Great.
Yep.
That
Any,
would be something to sort of lay out. I mean, this whole concept of summer programming, I mean, it's gotten a lot bigger, which is, well, it's unfortunate that we needed it, but it's fortunate that we've had so many folks who've been taking advantage of it. I mean, it used to be just sort of a rounding error in the budget to support summer school. It wasn't really anything big, but now it's a significant, regardless of who pays for it, it's
it
sort of where
was
money comes from.
such a good benefit when we looked at the data, looking at that we really didn't
I
have
have
much
no-
summer learning loss because
Oh, I
of
think
that.
I think it's
It was
great. I think it's a
fantastic.
great investment, but I'm wondering if maybe before the summer, you take a step back and sort of structure it out, knowing that here are some of the things that we're going to try to tackle with summer school, and maybe incorporating some of the things that Garth was talking about. And it's a lot of money, have it be a little bit more gelled up with, these are some of the tracks they're going to try to offer, and put the costs in there. Almost like we would any other sort of initiative, right? Because it's fairly significant.
It is.
And moving forward, we have to have a big conversation about that because, you know,
I guess it was gonna
needs
be
to
part
go
of our
from
board
what we're required to do from a special ed perspective, right? But now it's an integrated,
Yeah, right.
bigger picture program. So budgeting wise, moving forward, it will be significant depending on what we choose to do.
Guessing we'll hear about that on the school board retreat, yes?
Not sooner.
If not sooner,
Maybe
yes,
sooner.
sooner
Maybe
than that, yeah, that's
Maybe
true.
sooner if you're doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be good to offer the 8th graders an opportunity this summer.
We have the funds to do that this year. It's just a matter of staffing, but yeah.
That's awesome.
Look into that.
What?
We'll look into that.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. We're almost fully staffed already, 2 months ahead of where we were last year, so.
And you have a lot of middle school
Rocks.
teachers.
It was not.
Ready to move?
Where I think we're ready to go to social emotional learning survey and Miss Deanna Ray.
This is pretty straightforward. And again, thank you to families for jumping in and answering our surveys, right? We don't really know what their needs are until they tell us. So we had 173 families chime in, and there were some additional topics that were mentioned, but anything on that sort of less than 1% can't hit them all, right? So these were the areas that were the big ones. So parents are saying, hey, you know, during morning meeting or advisory time, you know, we would like these topics focused on. So anxiety, building resilience, bullying, depression, internet safety, interpersonal relationships, mental health, respect, and social skills. So there's a lot of consistency there with how our advisories and morning meeting programs are already set up, and it flows in nicely with information in the DESA, and so we can start to pull that together.
Did they choose as many as they wanted on here?
Yes.
This was like as many?
Oh, it wasn't like pick one or two.
No.
You just-
It was any area that you thought was an area of concern or need.
Yep.
Yep. And so from there, the question was asked, okay, so given those areas of need, would you be interested in attending a family informational event focused on any one of those topics above? So you can see the result there. Quite a few people said, yeah, you know, more than 3/4, yep, we would like to participate in something.
So what was the question before? Can you just go back to the first question? I can't read it on here.
Topics.
What topics are you interested
to be addressed?
What
Meeting,
topics would you like to see addressed?
morning meeting or advisory.
Oh, okay. Oh, in morning meeting advisor. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So then this
And
was
then
bring the
taking
family
that out
in.
of the school setting, so that's for kids, right?
Yeah, yeah.
For students, what do we want to talk about while we have them here? And then taking that a step further, what do parents want to hear more about, you know, from their lens? So parents said, yeah, they're 3/4 of them then said, yep, I would like you to offer something. Then we took it a step further from there and said, okay, well, where do you want this event to be held? Because we know that as much as we all have been loving in person, it's hard to sometimes get out the door and get to things. So we want to provide as much accessibility as possible. So that was pretty split.
It's gonna be split.
Some people wanted in person.
It's always gonna be split.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah, well, and I will say though that this survey was sent out before some of our changes in masking, and so this may vary slightly, but we've also learned we can always tape an event and post it.
It's the new normal. I mean, people's schedules are crazy. I mean, there's more than pandemic reasons why people want to do things online.
It was more than slightly ironic that we're talking about addressing social and emotional problems by being antisocial and staying.
I know, I was just saying that.
It's not
But, you know.
Well, we want to give them the tools and strategies and the knowledge. So however we get it there, you know, we'll get there. And then, of course, we want to know what time of day they would prefer. No surprise there that evenings were the time. So again, if we post the information, at least it's out there. And then we always like to ask the child care question, because for some families who do want to be in person, it's tough to have your little ones in tow. So I know in past years we've had NHS students come in, volunteers, you know, whatever, so we can certainly look at that if we choose to, if we feel like that's something we want to offer. And then we just had this, you know, other column where we just looked for the trends in the comments. And so the major trends were more after-school programming. So again, looking at those opportunities. Internet safety at the middle school level came up. Mental health awareness, overarching umbrella, lots of little comments underneath that fits under that umbrella. And then just teaching kindness, which I think we do all the time, right? So we took this information a step further and had a conversation with our MTSSB team, which is multi-tiered systems of support focused on behavior. And I've already started brainstorming like parent events and like what our next steps are. So yeah, that team has been moving and grooving this year.
So do you have like internal like champions on going back to the categories, the bar graph? I mean, do you have people who are sort of, I won't call them experts, but champions internally on each of those? Like
I wouldn't say in each, but in several, absolutely. We started talking about some in-person events that have been done in the past where parents could just sort of pop in, where, you know, Dr. Linda was doing, you know, what's the impact on the brain with
Video games.
Video gaming.
Video
Well, that was a PTA-sponsored event a few
That was
years
a good
ago.
one.
So we do have people internally who could speak to a lot of those topics, for sure.
Yeah, so, you know, an idea that you may want to consider if you're kicking this off is to, you know, maybe have like a one night, 2 hours, and then have, you know, whether it's 45 minutes, everybody in a room talking about this globally, right? Like a 15-minute break, and then have two 30-minute breakout sessions so that people can get to they can get two topics, right? So, you know, have different rooms, so you do 30 minutes, switch, do 30 minutes. And some of them you may have to bundle. I mean, they might be, maybe the kindness bullying thing might, dovetail well, so.
Kind of like keynote speaker, and then you can go to some breakout
Yeah, because I mean, if you have people that's checked off 4 boxes, they're not going to go to 4 hour and a half.
Yeah, that's pretty much what we did when we organized it. Carrie and I and others sort of put it together, and it was interesting because some of the parents were like, "I wanted to go to all of them,"
They wanted more, for sure.
They wanted more, but that was pretty much how we did it. We came together, and then they could choose, and it was very well received.
And then you can do a deeper dive, right, based on.
Yeah,
Actually, that was
based
one of the
on what it was
feedback
that they wanted to do. Yep.
And it was, I'm not surprised to see internet safety at middle school among things that have happened in the news, but that was one of the things was, I want something specific to my age of child. And I think truly that would apply to all of the 3 on the bottom is, while they appreciate that global view, they want what is specific to their own child, which makes sense.
Yeah, we did talk about breaking it out middle and elementary because what you talked
Vastly
about in
different.
the
First grade and a 7th grader.
Very different.
I do want to mention that since it's more after school programming, not specifically to that, but I heard at the meeting, Jesse Tennis at the select board meeting said that this Saturday at 10 a.m. is the registration opens for the rec centers before and after school. So I'm saying that because I know from friends that is a competitive program to get into. So just just mentioning that to anyone listening, to set your calendar for that.
That's why we had kindergarten information. It was a month earlier than we usually have it, and it was for that reason, because typically we have it after that lottery.
Right.
And then parents were like, and good luck for after school, because you kind of missed the boat on that. So it was good. And Jesse had staff there to talk about the program and whatnot. So
We can put that on our Facebook page. Need social media. All right.
Right, so more to
Make a
come
content
on social emotional learning events.
thank you,
Theater
Deanna.
near you.
Oh, well, some of the grant funds, it doesn't have to be a lot, but be put aside for those community events because there may be speakers and things that require costs. Aftercare may require costs, which I just need to say, please always include aftercare so that we don't have accessibility be an issue for families to be able to attend. But yeah. I didn't know if there was.
That would be amazing.
Because food,
We have
refreshments.
always wanted to get like a Lynn Lyons in here or something, and we haven't been able to afford
And
it.
it's not a lot of money when you're looking at a huge, not a huge pool, but when you're looking at funds coming from a grant, it's
I would
really a
think
drop in the
that would
bucket.
apply. I can't imagine you wouldn't be able to apply.
Social emotional recovery from
Other
COVID.
activities that you've
Yeah.
already written.
Just
Oh,
Yeah.
all right, good.
Not worried about it.
this question isn't related to the last question. How many families did this go out to?
It went to the whole district.
Whole district.
How many families is that?
Oh,
Pre-K to 8?
Pre-K to 8, so,
Family numbers.
yeah, so number of students were right around,
Like 5 something.
I want to say
Only 128
Like
said they
high
wanted.
500s.
173.
Said they want to do an in-person event, right? It's only a quarter.
or, I mean, not many replied, but
Well, that's out of, was it
It was
170?
120
Out of the
replies,
173.
So I want to say only half, 60%, about 60
Out of
would be
600
willing to come.
said they want to do an in-person event.
Not everybody not everybody
even
knew
if they
about
didn't
the
do the
survey
survey.
too. I'm not going to get into
Yeah.
it, but
Yes, of the people replying.
That's why I think, before you get really deep into it, have sort of a catch-all event.
Right.
Take the temperature and then figure out where you want to really invest, right?
I think it's extremely important, but I also think it's worthy to kind of gauge the interest of, to say, hey,
I
well,
will say the last time that we did something like this, excuse me, that was our biggest turnout.
Ever.
Aside from pizza bingo.
yes, actually, yes, pizza bingo still always takes.
brass
Oh,
tacks.
no,
When does that start again?
Pancakes with Santa, but yes, that was the
Other than that.
non-child event, not like
And we
child
didn't serve
event.
food. really.
No food.
No food.
bingo is not a child event.
Oh yes, that's it. Garth would go up and get the prizes that were for the children.
Average age of a bingo player skews.
Yes.
Anyways, okay.
So we have one policy for second read.
We have we have facilities.
Oh, thank you, thank you. So we needed to discuss use of school facilities for outside organizations, Barrington organizations that use our schools. As you know, hiring has been a challenge, particularly hiring custodial staff. But we also want to keep our schools open from a facilities perspective to the community. One of the ideas that Mr. Toll and I have talked about with some of the different organizations, but again, it would require an amendment to our policy, is to provide like a key card fob that would be specific for that organization to use that facility if we're running into issues with, custodial coverage, but we want to make our buildings open. So that's kind of a very high level. We didn't bring the policy forward. Obviously, it would need to go to policy committee, but I just wanted to talk to the board about their thoughts on that process.
I'm only laughing because for years I wanted one for our events. I have had to text everyone in this room so many times to let me into the building. So that's the only reason why I'm asking is
Dan, can
I
just ask
support
a
it.
clarifying question about that?
support it.
Would
Sure.
that also mean that they would need to set and reset the alarm?
Yes, potentially we would give them a code to set the alarm in the buildings. Yes.
I only set the alarm off one time. Everyone. One time.
Yeah, now the wind does it.
Yeah, my take on it is I don't have a concern at a high level with certain organizations having access. I don't think it should be,
Everybody.
just any organization that wants access, we give it. I think there should be some level of approval, whether it's, I think, usually I like to push things sort of out, but I think the board should probably actively sign off on access issues.
Okay.
With that said, I think also we need to make sure that, the policy committee can do this, obviously, but, make sure that the organization that is allowed to do it, we really need to make sure that they have updated liability coverage.
Okay.
They need to sign off on that. They leave at 9 o'clock with the door propped open. There's $15 million of crap that's sitting around, and it's on them or their insurance company.
Okay.
So as long as the liability is taken care of and the board okays whoever the organization is, I don't have an issue with it. I always get worried about the door being propped open, but that's.
Will our insurance in some way have an opinion about not assigning it to a person rather than an association? Or, like would they want there to be one designated person that has like a confirmed background check?
Yeah, knowing other school districts, we can run it through Primex, which is our liability insurance
Like, we might want
carrier.
to just make sure.
But I do know other school districts, again, community organizations, they provide access. So we would, again, I'd want to follow up, either Vicky or I, with our liability.
making sure.
Yeah,
I know
insurance
my
carrier, but
liability.
I don't think that's
More
going to
about
be
it
an
than I
issue.
probably should.
And that's access without any supervision, like no.
Swipe in, swipe out. And again, we know that there's some organizations that have come forward on this. This is not an
Not an-
open ticket.
Right.
This is for select organizations that are very familiar with the district and its policies and
Okay.
the expectations and things like that. And that should be highlighted as well, that, they sign off on, they know how to set the alarm. We know that they know how to set the alarm. We know who holds the key by name, not by organization.
Not shared.
Yeah, I was going
Keys
to say it
aren't
should be a
shared. If there's
person.
multiple people that are going to have keys,
Codes aren't shared.
codes aren't, you know what I mean? just so that there's no confusion on it, but other than that, it's,
Okay.
I don't have a concern, you know?
So I think our next steps is to bring forward that policy to the policy committee, have them review it, and then call out those specific recommendations to review with the board.
Yeah, I will make one comment. I think that there was other options to provide access other than just having, giving a key to an organization. But I think the problem we're going to run into is, and I can just speak to the Barrington Youth Association in particular, the school has a contractual obligation to provide them with hours of gym time in exchange for the field use the BYA provides the district in the springtime for BMS for softball and baseball. If the school is unable to give the BYA access to the gym time on a regular basis, and essentially the BYA would no longer be required to provide for free field space to the school, at which point they might turn around and say, okay, they'll charge the school district for use of the fields. And so this might be so just when we're weighing it, which is best for the interest of the taxpayer and the community, something to add a wrinkle.
I'll see you in policy committee.
Yeah. Or, just fine, then if it's not, if you don't want to give an organization a key, then you're going to have to pay someone to be there, and they're obligated to do so.
I think your point is well taken. It's not all or nothing. It's not about giving everybody access. It's not, I think you have to be very specific. It doesn't necessarily mean, when an alarm is set, doesn't mean somebody else could set it later. I think there are lots of ways to explore this. I have some reservations about access to the building all weekend. Even when we do have people there at night and we have groups come in who are fine people, but they don't always stay contained to the place that they're asked to stay to. It's less likely with the gym, people who are using the gym, but when people are using multiple areas, it's tough sometimes. So I think your point is well taken. I think there are other ways that I think access is important, but how we do that, we can think about ways to do that.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking as far as, coming back to the board, which is to say, listen, it's a small town. We have only so many Barrington organizations, and what subset of those would even have an interest in it. But, having it come to the board is sort of a final check where, whether it's coming through Terry or Jim, say, listen, this organization wants access to the elementary school. We'd like the board to approve this access. Gives you an ability to have input. It gives ability for Jim to say, okay, they're going to have access, but it's going to be to these doors, and we're going to preemptively do these 2 or 3 things for this particular group, and then just sort of make an informed decision off of that, right? Otherwise, you just don't want to rubber stamp it, and it doesn't need to be all or nothing.
I would agree. I would agree, and I think sometimes you can. If I'm nearby, I'll give you access. I think we only have to do it when it's needed. I don't necessarily think.
Well, I can just tell you that this past season, and for good reason, they were running into not being able to get access on a regular basis to the facility.
Got it.
Okay, because of staffing.
Yep.
So all of a sudden the SAU is in violation of what they promised they're going to do. So how we address that from a school side, it's up to us. But
I think it makes sense.
I think we can find a solution.
It's probably pretty simple.
All right.
So now we have just one policy for second read, which is policy JH, which is, again, attendance, absenteeism, and truancy. No changes from first read to second read.
Where did I put it? Jesus. Too many papers. There were no changes. Okay. So I make a motion to approve for second read policy JH, attendance, absenteeism, and truancy.
Everyone here, Garth, second?
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Now I believe we're up to letters of correspondence. There's 2 letters of correspondence this evening. The first is from Mr. Leatherman, his letter of resignation from Barrington Middle School in the Barrington School District, last day of employment, June 30th. And then the other letter of correspondence is mine, which again, similar, effective as of June 30th. So you have both of those letters of resignation to review.
Yeah. Well, we have to vote on it before it actually votes, but no, it's just a couple words, obviously, mixed emotions on this. On one hand, it's Barrington's loss, for losing both of you. But, it should be noted that, you guys have some really incredible opportunities. For those who don't know, Terry is going to be the next superintendent of the Raymond School District, and Dan's going to be the superintendent of Hudson. So, they're not Barrington, but sometimes you have to take steps down in your career, right? It's just natural.
Not everyone can cut it here.
Yeah, not everyone. It's not for everyone. But starting with Terry, I just want to say that Terry came in during, I would say, a time of constant transition at our middle school, both with how the school was structured. Remember, multi-age for people who've been around a while. We had some turnover, rapid succession turnover in leadership there. Had a lot of transition in how the school was structured academically. Had a lot of very public and very vocal feedback on just about everything that was going on there. And Terry came in and in very short order, got his arms around it. Made lots of suggestions, made lots of changes, had lots of successes, but more importantly, had a couple misses, but was adept enough to quickly identify them and course correct, and find places where we could make situations better, right? And I think that's pretty evident. I think you certainly have left your mark in a positive way there. So you're certainly going to be missed by the board, but actually probably by the kids, a lot of kids. So thank you. And then Dan, you came in in a new and unique position back when Gail was here as our superintendent, and you really had trial by fire. You stepped in at a time when we were in the middle of curriculum updates and curriculum cycles, and again, lots of transitions in the district. And you've been a very reassuring voice, not only for the board, but I can say for parents. Your passion for communication and being ahead of things on communication-wise, I think is appreciated by parents throughout the district. Not so much your 4 a.m. snow messages, but other things certainly. And listen, I don't know, I'm not a superintendent historian, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say, for any leader, superintendent included, the last 2 years are probably been the most challenging for anybody who's been in education, and in particular in a leadership position where you're balancing the priorities of the board with voices in your staff and teachers and parents, and not it's no surprise that sometimes they don't all gel up. And you were the guy that had to make heads and tails of it and make sure that the district was moving forward. So for that, I really appreciate all that you've done, and you're both going to be missed. So maybe you guys can come back like in September and both lead us in the pledge.
Yes. Gosh. And also sing the national anthem, obviously.
Dan will sing the national anthem.
Yes.
Terry will do the pledge.
Yes.
Microphone in his hands.
Yes.
Terry to come
We
to the
have
retreat
seen him with a
steak tips from
microphone in
Tuckaway.
his hand.
What's that?
Steak tips from Tuckaway.
So anyway,
I need to see that in person.
anybody else?
I have to.
Any other thoughts, comments? I mean, you both will very much be missed. So, and thank you for everything that you've done for our kids.
Sure.
since I'm sure nobody wants to, but if
So
someone.
motion to regretfully accept the resignations of both Terry Leatherman, Principal Extraordinaire at Barrington Middle School, and Dr. Moulis, our faithful and dedicated superintendent for these past
Second.
5 years.
Danimal.
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, I hope the next person can get a nickname.
Yeah, we gotta have a nickname for the
Gotta
next
have a
one.
nickname.
What's Dan's nickname? What's Dan's
The new
nickname?
one.
Danimal.
Danimal.
He's now the old
And there's
person.
somebody around, and there's somebody around here with a Danimal, I think
License
that lives in
plate.
Barrington with a Danimal license plate.
Biggest fan.
We have to email the new district to make sure they
I'm
know.
gonna get a huge print of those like big poster boards with Dan's face on it. Just Dan.
No, just, maybe Chris Pat. Just Chris Pat. Sorry, it was just too easy.
I knew it was going to happen.
Okay.
All right.
All right, so we're up to public comment.
Okay. You have something for us, Dan? Now you're the Danimal. You're going to be here as the.
I actually played rugby with a guy named, I was Dan and he was Danimal, and he was really well named. But hey, you obviously didn't pay attention to the blind soothsayer who said to beware of the Ides of March because I'm back. But I wanted to, Carrie just mentioned it, I think it's probably the most important thing I could have brought here, is that the after-school sign-up starts this Saturday at 10. So I think that you've probably gotten that to all your people. Good. Just FYI, we had 23.8% of the registered voters voted. Connor's a little more crazy than I am. He says it's 23.78, but I'll take it for that. So I think that shows there's a lot of support for municipal election. That was last year it was 13%. This year it was 23.8. I'll go with that. And Congressman Pappas called our office Monday, and the budget that the president is hopefully will sign shortly and gone through the House and the Senate. Among other provisions is $1.5 million for our town hall, which means we probably will not have to bond anything to build the new town hall. So there are dollars out there.
Nice.
Thank you, Dan.
Hey, thank you. Okay, and I don't see anyone online.
I just want to give a shout out. Jesse Tennis's name came up earlier, and she's just been amazing. So if you could just take that back. Her communication, we work so closely with the rec before and after care. There have been so many changes, so many issues, understaffing, all sorts of things. And she has been phenomenal. Her communication is amazing. Whenever there has been an incident, she completely follows up. How did that work for you? She debriefs, completely professional, just a gem, and we're lucky to have her, and I just wanted to throw that out there.
I've had several conversations with her through the COVID times, and she's always just great in making sure we're in lockstep.
No. Nope, we're ready for a
Citing
motion.
RSA 91-A:32A, would like to enter the town.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
guys.
You got it.
Don't say